Jon Machota, Cowboys writer, here with the Athletic, and he joins us now here on 105 to the Fan. And good afternoon, Jon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So they're just going to run it back? Is that what we're seeing here? What's your take on what's developed so far since the Cowboys lost?
Yeah, that's what it appears to be. I don't know. Like, I want to sit here and say it's surprising, but going over how Jerry Jones has managed the team over the last decade plus, this is kind of in line with the way he's done things, where there haven't been a lot of big risks. And I think even though the fan base would look at it as going in another direction, a head coach not being a big risk, I think Jerry looks at it that way, that it would be the changing up a bunch of things. You know, it's not just your head coach is changing, the staff's changing, the way they interact with the scouting department and the front office, and now all of a sudden the players have to learn new systems. And I just don't think that Jerry Jones wants to go through that. I think he wants to I think he hopes that it works with Mike, and then if it doesn't, then next year at this time, then that's when he can be like, hey, we tried everything we could with this. Now it's time to go in a new direction and kind of be a new path then. But I am a little surprised just with the way that Jerry sounded after the game immediately. I thought after he got a chance to kind of sit there and sleep on it for a little bit, I thought ultimately that loss would have been too much for him to get past with just running it back, but clearly it isn't.
You're very good at keeping a level-headed and professional approach, which I certainly am not good at that, Jon. But how did Sunday impact or change the way you view this team moving forward, considering you are going to have the same head coach, the same quarterback, and potentially Dan Quinn back as well?
Well, from my reporter standpoint, I would say that it's not as exciting, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, but it's one of those things where I know it's going to be a hard sell to the fan base to want to read a lot of articles about the Dallas Cowboys over the next 365 days, no matter what you talk about, coaching staff, players, the draft. There's just a lot of things that have happened in the last week or so that have turned a lot of fans off, and understandably so. When you have a game like Sunday where it's such a shock, because it's not just a loss, it's the manner that it happened, and then the fact that Dak didn't play well, and you didn't get some big game out of Micah or CD, and the defense just looks like it's trending in the wrong direction. There's just not a lot of things when you cover this team.
Have we lost Jon? That was the weirdest dropped call sound I've ever heard.
That was weird.
I thought it was my headphones.
Maybe it was his headphones. Maybe that's what it was.
He's
maybe
probably,
Jon was wearing the AirPods.
He's wearing his AirPods. His AirPods died on
That
him.
could have been what it was.
He's switching over to his Bluetooth right now.
Right now he's probably scrambling like, oh my gosh, I need to get back on the phone.
Man, that's a pretty good sound quality there.
Yeah, it is.
If you're doing that.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
he's a pro about that.
Over an earbud situation. I think that's the biggest storyline right now. That's why I opened up the show with it today. Like, what's Jerry's thinking about getting the fans to buy in and generating some excitement? I thought that was incredibly interesting what, Jon, you just brought up to us a minute ago, and we have you back about, you know, the readers of your articles not being as interested. How do the Joneses approach getting fans excited about this season, or do you think they believe it just doesn't matter and we're going to go to try to win games and get them back that way?
I mean, obviously it matters, and they care about that. You know, Jerry cares about, you know, the selling merchandise and getting people to, you know, sell out AT&T Stadium. I don't know that the Cowboys have such a big fan base. I don't know that they're going to have problems in that area. Their games are still going to be the highest, most watched games. You know, being somebody that's from Detroit, I'm used to when things are going poorly, you know, you get the fans chanting the owners to sell the team, or, you know, when Matt Millen was the GM in Detroit for far too long, there was like scheduled walkouts, and it didn't matter if you were at a Lions game or a Red Wings game or a Tigers game. If there was a break in the action, people all got together and started chanting, "Fire Millen." You don't get that with the Dallas Cowboys, you know, like, and they're just, I still think that there's just so many fans that they will still get people that are so interested, because the Cowboys are probably the biggest brand in sports. But in terms of people that are like the fans that want to see them finally get to a Super Bowl, I don't know that there's anything they can do in the next 365 days that can get them to buy in. I mean, they can go 15-2 and it still won't matter, because when you play as poorly as they did after thinking that this season might be different because of the way they were playing at home and 3 consecutive 12-win seasons. Like, I don't know what they can do to get you to buy in between now and next year at this time.
Well, we were talking about it. For me, I thought, boy, if you could draft early a great lineman who shows up early in the season, if you could maybe sign a veteran lineman as well, and I don't know if that's Tyron Smith or somebody else, but, and then get a runner in there to where you are the team that's getting like 4.8 yards per attempt for the first month of the season, then I would think, hey, this might actually, be something that could win games in January.
Yeah, and I hate that I have to say this because I like the guy so much and he's such a good dude, but with the way Dak has played in the playoffs, even if all of that happened, there would have to be part of you that would say, man, but it could all fall apart. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how he can play any better than he did this regular season, and then to play that poorly against the Packers, and that's your most important player. Because of that, that's always going to be in the back of your mind. A great running game will help a lot. I mean, that's obviously been a huge help for that Lions success with Jared Goff. It's not like they're just put it on Goff's back. I don't think Jared Goff's doing anything in Detroit that Dak wouldn't be doing if he was there. So that will help. But this playoff appearance and then the last one at San Francisco with how poorly Dak played, that's always going to be in the back of your mind that no matter how well things go in the regular season, is it going to revert back as soon as these games start being win or go home?
Okay, one more. And then, so I wanted to follow up on Dak there. What do you think's going on there? Is there any indication of reason to believe that the pressure, there's like a Kirk Cousins situation going on, like Kirk in primetime, Dak in the playoffs? Is that a narrative that is valid in your mind, John?
Until it changes, you have to think that. Until he goes out there and gets over the hump and puts together this, 3-game postseason winning streak and gets them to a Super Bowl, I don't know how you can think otherwise. He has to show it. And really, he's about as open as any player is when it comes to things like that. I mean, to sit there and admit how poorly he's played in those games, I mean, he's not running from it. He knows it has to be better there. I'd say the one positive you have is now with the second season with McCarthy calling plays, maybe things get to a level where this becomes like the perfect offense for him where, there are no weaknesses. No matter what an opposing defense does, they have the answers to the test, and that will ultimately make it for the difference in January. And maybe that does happen next January. Maybe we're talking about a deep playoff run next year. I'm just saying that between now and then, it's tough to sell that to people.
John, from one guy that owns up to it to another guy that hasn't, Micah Parsons. What about that whole thing? We see him on podcasts and he's always out there talking about things, but then at the end of it, though, when it's all kind of trying to explain, he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, not a great look. I mean, it's not a great look for somebody that, is on track to be paid like maybe, if not the highest, one of the highest defensive players to ever play this game. And so if that's the case, you need that guy to also be face of the franchise leader type as well. No question. I mean, he's still young, so that's not to sit there and say that can't happen. And he's obviously a freak, talent, and you would rather have him than not have him. But no, it's not a good look that you don't hear anything from somebody like him because of how important he is to the franchise. I mean, he's the face of their defense. He's one of the biggest reasons the reason that they've won 12 games each of the last 3 seasons. So, yeah, I don't love that. It kind of surprised me because usually once, he gets in front of the microphone, he's great. And it seems like he actually enjoys doing it. But maybe there's a part of him that's not right now because he doesn't want to say something that he'll regret. And so while we'll sit here on the radio and talk about how he needs to talk, maybe in the background there, people around him are like, no, it's better that he doesn't. You guys can think it's bad right now, but it would have been way worse if he would have talked. And so maybe he's just waiting to give it some time because he doesn't want to say the wrong thing.
John, is there any thought about the Cowboys not doing anything with Dak's contract and just letting this thing ride and see what happens?
That's certainly possible. I think that all comes down to, Jerry and Dak and Dak's guys sitting down and talking about where they're at in terms of a new deal. As bad as it's looked in some of these playoff games, I just don't see Dak Prescott not being here a year or two from now. I just can't see it. I can't see it from the Jerry Jones perspective. I don't see him wanting to start over with a new quarterback. I don't think that it's one of these things where, they're setting it up for Trey Lance to be the guy. I think Dak is going to be the guy. They just have to figure it out financially. And obviously when you're one of, the top quarterbacks in the league, you're going to get paid that way. So I would be very surprised. It would go against everything we've seen from Jerry Jones. I mean, again, I wrote about this the other day. I mean, you go back to 2012. They did the trade up for Morris Claiborne.
Yeah.
They paid that $50 million for 5 years to Brandon Carr. Since that day, everything has been very conservative, and it's worked out in some areas very well. The draft, the way they've built this roster, the talent, being conservative has been smart. Not trading up, trading actually back, and still getting Micah Parsons and gathering picks along the way. There's a lot of things that have been positive, but when you look at the totality of it, it's been very conservative. It hasn't been very risk-taking. And going in another direction without Dak seems like that would be too much of a risk that Jerry would want to take.
Okay, well, how about Dak then trying to help the organization? Any thought about that? With a better deal in order to try and
takes a little bit less,
take some pressure off himself, but kind of helps him with some players around him.
That would certainly be possible. I could see that. If I step away from covering the Cowboys and I pretend that I'm Dak's agent though right now, I would say don't do that. And the reason why is because of Jared Goff. I do think that there would be plenty of teams out there that would say, man, it's crazy what you've been able to do with the Cowboys being under that microscope and all that. Come over here. Let us take some pressure off of you. And then all of a sudden he has an outstanding year. It's kind of like Stafford leaving Detroit and going to the Rams. That would not surprise me either. It's not like they part ways with Dak and now Dak's got to go to the announcer booth. No, Dak's getting another job somewhere else. He's too good of a player not to be a starting quarterback in this league. He's still in his early 30s. He's not going to be out of the league. He has options. And so I don't think his agent will tell him to do that at all. So, but if he wants to do it, I could see Dak doing that. I can see Dak stepping in. That's the type of guy he is, no question. But I can't see his agent being cool with that.
The Athletics' Jon Machota with us here in the GBag Nation. Did anything stand out to you from what Mike McCarthy said earlier today at his presser? And what do you think he's got to make sure he changes this offseason going into next year?
Yeah, you could tell that, even though there's been a few days that have gone by that, the way the season ended, like the shock and of it, you could still tell he was still emotional about that. That's going to leave a bad taste in his mouth for a long time. And I know obviously it will for fans too, but Mike McCarthy had to be surprised with what he saw Sunday. There's no way. Losing a close game to the Packers and getting an upset or something like that, sure. To get punched in the mouth, be down 27-0 late in the first half, being down 32 come on. What are we doing here? Not a team that's won 16 in a row at home to the Green Bay Packers. I know that I saw a guy that is still stunned that the season came to an end the way that it did. That was probably my biggest takeaway from it, because everything else, Mike's a longtime head coach. He's going to say the right things. He's not going up there as nervous as a lot of us would be in that situation, knowing the questions you're about to get. He's been through this stuff. So he wasn't really rattled with that, but I could just tell the look on his face and just kind of the way he was carrying himself that he still can't believe that they're not playing right now.
What did you think was happening early in that game when McCarthy's conversing with CeeDee Lamb and everybody's body language seemed a little bit weird and mopey, and it felt like they had already lost the game down 7? What do you think was being talked about there?
He said it had something to do with the way CeeDee ran a route and with the way Green Bay was in coverage, and maybe that was. But there's a part of me that thinks that it might have had something to do with the fact of I got to try and get ahead of this thing right now because I've seen this before. I saw this in San Francisco earlier this year. I've seen this in Buffalo. When things start going bad, you saw it against the Cardinals. When things started going bad early in those games, it didn't matter. They could have played 16, 17, 25. They could have played 50 quarters of football, and you were like, they're not turning this thing around. And so I think maybe he saw something early where he was like, I need to say something. Let's try and rally these guys and get them back focused because there's still a lot of game to play. Let's not have the deer in the headlights look. There's still plenty of time here. Let's try and get this thing back on track. But I'm sure everybody was very concerned with the way it was going up to that point. But he said it had something to do with the route that was being run.
So was it your AirPods just now, or what happened?
Why did my phone cut out?
Yeah, we heard like a bloop bloop.
It did for a moment there, or very beginning of the interview.
No, I don't think so. I'm just talking to my regular cell phone here outside of the CBS, so I don't think so. Maybe Jerry's cutting into this thing.
Yeah, dude, phones are being tapped.
How fired up are you for the Lions? Are you flying home? Cheer them on?
I'm not, man. Those tickets are crazy expensive. It's like $600 is like the cheapest ticket to get in that building, and it's a divisional round game. I mean, if they were to make it to the Super Bowl, I would try and get to that, or I'd go back to Detroit or something like that. But I mean, I don't know. I expect them to beat the Buccaneers, so I'm excited for them, though. I mean, I'm excited for the city. It's been a long time. I mean, too long for the Lions, but it's been a while for a Detroit sports team to kind of be on the map like that. And obviously, as you see by the turnout of the people at the games, I mean, they're fired up about it. So I'm obviously happy for them.
Now, what was your honest reaction when the Cowboys beat the Lions in Week 17? Was there any disappointment in your Jon Machota mind there as you watched that game with your objective reporter hat on?
Not really. I mean, that was my 10th Cowboys Lions game, and I've just seen too many to where I would say the closest that I've ever been to that was if you guys remember that game. I think it was 2013 when they played up in Detroit. And Matthew Stafford won the game by like faking the spike and reaching over the goal line, and Dez was flipping out on the sideline. They have an open air press box in Detroit, which is my favorite, and you just felt the crowd. And that was probably the last time that I've ever been like professionally working somewhere where I was like really like, wow, that was crazy. I can't believe that happened. But I just I don't know. It's like, I mean, I still want the Lions to win. Don't get me wrong, but like when I'm covering a game or something like that, like I don't really feel too much emotion. I try and be as much down the middle as I can, including on the pivotal call there. I was trying to I had a bunch of friends in town for the game, and I was just trying to explain to them, like, I don't know why you guys are mad at the refs. You need to be mad at Dan Campbell because he needs to kick the extra point and go into overtime. Have you seen this Cowboys defense play? Why would you think that they're about to stop you in overtime? Like, you're not trying to shock the world. You're as good as them. Go to overtime and win the game. Like, that's the thing you should be mad at. It's not the refs.
So what's next here? We're waiting for Jerry and Steve to talk at the Senior Bowl. Is that our next chance at getting some good news here, Crankin? What do you think?
I would think so. I was disappointed that they didn't do some interviews with you guys this week. I was hoping we'd get something, but I think Jerry and Steven are going to lay low for a little bit. They know the frustration that the fan base has, and they know that there's nothing they probably can really say right now. But yeah, Senior Bowl in Mobile. They'll definitely be there. Jerry will definitely talk there for sure. So that might be the next time. And then it'll get right into draft and free agency talk. And I understand. I mean, time heals wounds, but I think this one's going to take a while for a lot of Cowboys fans to get past. There'll be a lot of them that hey, new season, new life, everything's great. Let's do this again. But I think there's a significant chunk that will be noticeable that it's going to take them a while to buy back in after what they saw this season and the way the season ended.
In the meantime, we'll tell everybody to keep reading your articles to keep your clicks up.
Absolutely. You know, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to find ways. I'm not giving up over here. I'm going to find storylines. I'm going to find ways to keep Cowboys fans interested. Believe me. I mean, I have nothing to complain about. I've hitched my wagon to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to cover the Dallas Cowboys probably until I take my last breath. So I'm not going anywhere. So I can be frustrated. I can feel bad for the fans, but I'm going to be here.
Hey, Johnny, real quick. Kalen DeLoach, you going to play him at linebacker or safety?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would probably go with linebacker, but he's a playmaker. He's one of those guys that got the it factor. So I'm a
Florida
fan.
State guy. Mm-hmm. There we go. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.